Hey, this is John. Today I just want to comment on the situation with AI today and give some thoughts on what I actually think its expectations are going to be for the future, especially now that we kind of have some more information since I last talked about it. But yeah, so if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Also, at the beginning of every video, I'm going to start doing this thing where I talk briefly about a book that I'm reading every week to help with the literacy crisis. And we'll be going through the German canon for the next while. So this week's book is The Reader. You can't see that at all. It's basically a book about a guy who gets involved with a 32-year-old woman when he's 15, and then he never really gets over it, and he sees her later at court for a different crime. So the book's about longing, history, and shame. All right, anyways, obviously in the last video I showcased that I actually know things about this topic, which is something that I think a lot of the people who comment about it online can't actually say. Here's another thing though, in addition to, yeah, like I obviously know stuff, but I've also done like literal work with it too, as you can see here. This is about as close as you get to a from scratch model that is workable on your own computer. This is at least part of the code for a post-trained model, right? So this is fine-tuned and it's engineered. If you want to do a pre-trained model, it's very expensive, so you typically, at least to make it effective, right, you typically just use an open source pre-trained model. I think I used a llama here, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. Anyways, so obviously AI's main problem has been hype for the last few years. And I would guess that, to be honest, we're probably nowhere near HEI. Given that I don't believe that simply increasing parameter count is going to lead these companies to the success that they think it will, or maybe that they don't even care about in the first place. And what I mean by that is that basically they are all focusing on increasing parameter count on the theory that by increasing parameter count, you have these things called emergent properties arise. And they must then be banking on that these are either not just stochastic fluctuations and like these overlapping distributions, or that it won't matter in the first place. So one of those two things, but I think that's probably going to end up being wrong. And my guess, and it's probably going to seem really obvious when I say this, because it kind of is, that they'll need new architectures to actually handle more complicated functions, and I mean more specifically new mathematical architectures, right? So it seems really obvious, but that's just being ignored in the market. I'm also going to add that as part of the explanation for the labor market issues, because a lot of people are upset, it seems, that perhaps AI is going to be taking their job, or that it already has taken their job. But for more than a year now, I've been effectively contending that this is basically just cover up for companies to, or at least it's likely cover up for companies to smooth over economic issues with their shareholders. And we do actually have some literal comments on that now from Sam Altman directly, right? And and presumably what this person is talking about, because there are other articles on this. This one's pretty recent, as you can see, but basically the idea is, if companies don't have to say, well, we're getting rid of workers, we're not hiring, whatever, because there's economic issues, that makes their company look bad. If instead they say, "Oh, well, we're implementing AI and it's making the company more efficient," um, that's not really such an issue. And for communicating with your shareholders or anyone who else who might want to hear good information about your company, that's much better. So simply put, the language models like ChatGPT are not sophisticated enough to take your job. I don't believe that at all. Because just being frank, the quality of the work that it does is pretty mediocre. And even on relatively easy tasks like, hey, generate a list of questions. For example, I asked it one time to generate a list of questions while I was studying for the CFA exams. And the questions that I got from it were worse than I thought they would be, which was surprising because my expectations were low already. So when I got them back, I thought that like a literal child would have done a better job. They were so bad, it was shocking. Then, other tasks like, if you asked it to collect the table of contents from a specified book, it seems to be unable to do that, even if the table of contents is available on the internet and it's a relatively easy to find book. Or maybe even if you uploaded the document, it still wouldn't be able to do that. So it's just not very good at basic tasks. Its writing, for example, is pretty mediocre as well, and that probably has to do with that it can't reason sufficiently, nor can it really experience anything to convey. You can also find lots of people online kind of making fun of it now for not being able to do relatively easy stuff. Okay. So obviously with LLMs holding up most of the market, it is a problem that ChatGPT is theoretically the most powerful model, given that it has the most parameters. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, pretty much all companies are focused on parameter count based on, the theory of emergent properties, presumably, right? Which, I mean, like, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I won't be, though. Anyways, where is it actually useful then, and where do I see it in the next 10 years? Well, basically, obviously, it's going to be good at any data sorting activities, like cluster algorithms that, basically sort data into different groups. And, even with visual information, that stuff is just improving very rapidly, and also on strictly defined tasks. So Q learning, for example, has been very effective in Go and chess games that are not necessarily simple but have well-defined rules. There's a clear objective, and the objective doesn't change. So why is that? Well, it's good at pattern recognition, fundamentally. Now, what this means, of course, is that if the rules are not well defined or they change, it won't really do a good job. So, do I see this ever managing an economy? Probably not, because the market will adjust continuously as the AI takes its actions, and that'll effectively change the rules on a continuous basis, which means that you need a new trained model continually. And one of the areas that you see this, for example, is in quant finance, based on everything that I've heard about it. and also on like just the sensibility, the way that algorithms and models work. You have to constantly update them, right? You don't just make a mathematical model and then leave it that way forever. It has to get updated. So okay, there's that. Will it be able to reason better than somebody like me? Also kind of unlikely, because logic isn't just rigid mathematics, and that's effectively what a language model is. Um, it's an application of relatively basic calculus, and it's a little interesting, I guess. I've heard some comments about like people not saying that we don't even understand how AI works, and it's kind of interesting because I think that's completely wrong. I mean, sometimes you don't necessarily know what rules it comes up with to do certain things, but you know that it, like how it works. It's just basically calculus on normal distributions, um, for the most part. So, um, and also again, like even if that could be done, like even if we could say make more sophisticated mathematical models that actually capture logic and reasoning effectively, that's still not where we're seeing all of the money go, or almost all the money go. Almost all the money goes to parameter tuning and like increasing the number of parameters and maintaining the infrastructure, not sophistication. So my contention then is that probably for at least the next 10 years, it won't be autonomous. And I don't think that's surprising. I know that surprises some people, but it's not new technology. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that the first sort of musings of AI math or neural networks was in the 1800s, for example. So this isn't exactly new. And even when I was yeah, I mean, I think for the last 10 years at least, people from the computer science departments have been saying it's going to take over. It's going to take over. Well, I just see it as a tool for excuses right now. So, yeah. Now, of course, what that means, and, maybe in conclusion, what people should kind of realize is that it's not like AI is taking your job. It's that you are in the context of a labor market with supply and demand factors, including those related to your occupation. And that is in relation to how well business is doing. So it is, it's kind of funny because originally I was going to comment on Adam Smith being wrong, which is what I have always been told, but it turns out that the truth is kind of funnier, right? Because I had, comment basically on, I think some people don't believe that the economy functions on, basically the premise that some individuals make profits and they work for their profits rather than, making good products. And the original statement was that, everyone says that Adam Smith says that you should be selfish in the market. And the interpretation of that by a lot of people seems to have been that you ought to be greedy. But it turns out that's not true. And so Adam Smith was never debunked. It said he never made that point in the first place. So he does, for example, believe that you should be selfish, but he still kind of abhors greed, for example. So it's more, and here's the articles, by the way. I got I guess a tip from this guy first, and then I went and found another article on it. But he is a professor at Sheffield University. quickly a bit more about me, but this article goes into exactly the thing. So that's sort of a funny thing, I guess, that seems like every single person has gotten wrong about Adam Smith's arguments, with relation to selfishness in the market, right? Because that was obviously wrong if you interpret it to be like boundless selfishness. Anyways, so I guess that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.